Welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We're here to raise your confidence and inspire your creativity. Each episode, we will have a different guest who will be discussing our Raise word. The Raise word is a word that will encourage you or empower you and at times inspire you to explore the word a little more for yourself. Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We've looked at some really important words recently. We've looked at the words anxiety and we've looked at the word ridiculous. Maybe not such an important word, but today we're going to look at a word that I think we all need, and that is the word support. And we're going to talk to the brilliant Errol Murray from Leeds Dads. Hi Errol, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. I want to know more about ridiculous.
Well, if I tell you, it was with a Eurovision specialist who works at the Eurovision Song Contest, but also happens to be a female priest who was at 9/11 when she was just 24 years old. That will help you to realise why we used the word ridiculous.
Wow.
Yes.
That's a journey.
It's quite an episode. It's quite an episode, but we're talking about you today, Errol. So before we dive into all the important things that you do with Leeds Dads and other things, what does the word support mean to you?
First of all, it's not a linear word. It's not a hand-to-hand word. It's not in one direction. It goes in many directions. In the same way that Leeds Dads, as I'll explain, supports hundreds of dads a year in Leeds. Those dads support the families, and those families support communities. So it's not something that works from A to B, and it is something that also works from B to A. But it's multi-directional. That's probably the first thing that I'd like to say about such a simple word, but such a powerful word.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think sometimes, particularly if we're asking for help, you can forget that it's multi-directional. And people often say, well, I didn't want to ask for help because everybody's got other things going on. But when it's multi-directional, you can give as much as you receive, maybe not at the same time, but later on. Do you think?
I think that help is a really difficult thing for a lot of people. Support is a very difficult thing for people to acknowledge, for people to say, yes, you know what, this is something that's going to help me. And it's like, you know, the first thing you and I say is, hi Carol, how are you? And you say, I'm
all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to get it wrong then. We didn't write this in the script.
and it's like I try and say how I feel when people ask me how I am.
Yeah.
And I think it's important because you don't know, someone might have a solution for what you're doing or where you are. And it might be easy for them to reach out and to extend to you. But because we're all polite and, you know, how do you do in your British ways? You know, we don't acknowledge that as a question of how can I help you or how are you feeling? It's just a way of starting a communication. And that's a real shame because when people say, how are you? It could be, well, I'm quite tired because I had to stay up with the kids through the night, or I'm a bit frustrated because I'm doing a double shift today and I'm not going to get to see my family until tomorrow morning. And there's no problem gaining some sympathy from that, some emotional support. And I think it's important to gain that emotional support. Whereas the way we live, we don't acknowledge it. And will say how are you back to each other and nod and smile and then limp away because we don't have that strength that someone may have been able to give through saying, I'm really sorry you're going through this. Um, what, let's talk about it, or um, what if I pop around to your family's home? I've made some biscuits. I'll drop them off for the kids. I've got some old toys from my kids. Do you think they'd like this? Here's a PlayStation. You know, it's these things can happen. These conversations do happen, but only when we allow ourselves to gain support.
Oh my goodness, that was such a powerful phrase then. I can't remember exactly what you said, but basically we say, I'm okay, thank you. And then we
Yeah.
limp away. Oh my goodness, that
Oh
was like a
gosh.
gut punch. But it's true, Errol, it's really true. And I wonder at what point in life will the word fine disappear from the dictionary? Because who does the word fine actually serve at the end of the day? Like, what does it really mean other
It's
than, I'm not going to tell you the truth, back off. You don't want the
totally,
responsibility of all the stuff that actually I'm going through. So fine
totally.
will do. I mean, yeah, fine would be an interesting word to talk about sometime, but wow. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not hard. That's my main frustration. It's not difficult for people to acknowledge a little more, to be able to say, you know what, this is what's happening to me. And someone might hear that and give them some emotional support, and that's it. And what people forget is it's one of the things that I've learned it within volunteering. The value of being able to support someone, of being able to help someone is immense.
Mm,
The idea of being able to say, oh, I'll make your kids some tea tonight and drop it round because I know that your partner won't be home till late as well. So it's just going to be ping in the microwave. But I've got an hour. I'm going to make a pie and I'll drop it off. And to have that, it's great. And the feeling that that person gets back, especially with food, to say, I fed someone today, feels great. Feels like I've really helped someone. I've changed their day. I've made them feel good. Um, as a kid, we someone was asking me about, where Leeds Dads comes from.
mm.
And I can't say, I don't know. Um, but I can remember as a kid, we had a constant stream of people around our house. And at the core of it, um, I thought it was my mum, but it wasn't. It was my mum's pot. She had an everlasting pot of food, and there was always something there. And these are the days when you didn't always have meat every night.
Mm,
We don't do that. We do now, but at the time, it'd be like a vegetable stew or pumpkin soup, and with big, thick, crusty bread, with real butter and real bread,
mm.
and there'd always be someone around for tea. And I used to think, who are these people? I hardly know them, and they're always coming round, and I don't really want to share my tea with them. And it's only now looking back that I can say that was my mum saying, "How are you?" And just being able to say, look, I can't solve all your problems and you can't solve all of mine, but let's just get a little bit of support from each other. I'm giving you support, and you're making me feel better by taking what I'm offering. So enjoy the soup and let's chat about whatever we're going to chat about. Does that make
It's that,
sense?
yeah, gosh, absolutely. I love that idea. And that actually doing the having people over. And for me, it's that sense of community, isn't it? And I think, I'm a bit of a word nerd, Errol, and I love words. And for me, like community is like with unity. It's about bringing people together. And that is what your mum was doing, wasn't it? It was just bringing people together. And um, I think sometimes the idea of support, people often say they feel a burden, don't they? But if you're just having people over for food, somehow that feels different, particularly if there's more than one person, if it feels like a
Yes.
real room full of people, and obviously family there as well. And whether you liked it or not, and I get it because my parents used to have quite a lot of homeless people at our house. Um,
How did
and
you react to that? Because I really didn't enjoy it. I
no,
used to get so frustrated with all these people coming round.
I mean, I just didn't really know who they were. And I think there were times where I probably felt a bit scared, and also
Mm.
that my parents needed support as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, that they needed that first. It was a different kind of support though. Our family needed emotional and mental health support, whereas these people needed, it was more the financial and mental health support, I think.
Hmm.
So it was kind of
Hmm.
different. But yeah, as a child, it didn't feel the best. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? It's
Well,
difficult.
it was, I didn't see it as people taking from us, but I just felt that we were giving a lot of support, and I didn't feel that we needed to give all that support. And I wanted my parents for me as well. But looking back, I can see now that the people who used to come round were our friends, and they're part of the community, and they gave back time as as our family did, generations back. So I guess she was continuing that. And I think Leeds Dads came out of need, but it also came from that legacy, definitely.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you're saying about how when how you're a kid, you didn't appreciate it, but look what you're doing now. And same with me. So it's interesting, isn't it? As you said, that legacy, although maybe it felt uncomfortable and unfair at the time, um, you then, with hindsight and
Yeah,
maturity, realize, well, actually, as you said, there is an element of um, people then, it being altruistic, but also um, that wanting to give from that same place, that same heart that we
yeah,
saw our
yeah.
parents giving from, which is really important. Tell us about Leeds Dads, Errol, because I got involved 6, 7 years ago, I think, and I did the brilliant Dadtastic days, and
You were
I,
great. You
I
should you
loved
must
it.
have been exhausted at
I
the end
was
of that day.
absolutely shattered. I remember I did four Raise and
Four
Shine story time
sessions.
sessions with
Yeah.
about 50 people in each, back to back. And then I think I went to Estabilo with my dad and fell asleep on the table pretty
Oh,
much,
really?
surrounded by all the meats that you get in Estabilo.
Yeah, yeah,
And of course, it was it Father's Day or day
yes.
before? Yeah, so that was perfect. It was a lovely way to celebrate Father's Day and meet
I
my dad.
see.
It was really nice. But yes, it was exhausting. But tell us all about Leeds Dads and why it's so important.
Okay, it's all about Rhea. It's all about my daughter Rhea.
Yeah,
We're older people. We didn't really expect to have a baby. We got two,
yeah.
and when the first one came along, it was like, oh my gosh, we've got a child. What are we going to do now? Um, and I think the closest family we had was 50 miles away from Leeds in Manchester.
Wow.
So we didn't have parents or siblings or uncles or cousins to call on. Life is very transient nowadays. People move to cities to be there for jobs, to be with their partners, and to study. And they're not with their community or the community that supported them as they grew up.
Mm,
So by so having a child meant that we didn't have anyone round the corner. And as much as you've got friends, um, it's that call at sort of 11 o'clock at night or
Yeah.
6 in the morning that says, look, I'm exhausted. We're having a rough time. Can you support us over the next sort of 6 hours and help us get through? We had family who came over from Chicago, and we sat down with them. We made them something to eat, and then we left the kids with them and went to bed because we were so exhausted.
Mm.
And they were quite comfortable with that. But these are the dynamics of having a baby. These are the dynamics of being a parent.
Yeah.
And I was tired, and my wife was tired, and I was working away in Manchester, and I was looking for ways to support my partner and also spend more quality time, as the
Mhm.
Americans say, with my baby. So I asked a couple of guys who I knew, and they all said, "Oh, not interested." So I asked a couple of mums that I knew, and they said, "Yeah, I'll get my partner to join you," and they did. And I think there were four of us,
Yeah.
and we're all in touch still. Met in 2011,
Yeah.
just around Father's Day, and we had coffee and cake at Leeds City Museum Cafe. It's still going.
Yeah.
And we asked if we could meet there, and we asked if we could put some toys down. And they're like, yeah, go for it. And we talked about how tired we were. We talked about the lack of conversation with our partners. Have you got the bread? Yeah, I've got the bread. Have you got the milk? Yeah, I've got the milk.
Mm.
And that's it.
Mm.
You're just thinking of the functional stuff. Are you doing the pickups tomorrow? I'll do the pickups tomorrow. And I was quite worried about us because I thought, oh, this isn't a good place. We're not communicating the way that we're used to.
Mm.
And I shared that with the other three dads, and they all said exactly the same.
Wow.
So it was a reassurance that it was a thing that we were going through.
Yeah.
And it helped me to recognize, oh, it's not just me. And that sense of not being alone was really helpful. Going to play groups, going to children's environments, as a dad on your own, going to those environments as a parent is quite challenging for
Yeah.
mums or for dads.
Yeah.
The tough part for me was that, mums wouldn't really connect to you, and the random dad that you did come across wasn't always that friendly either.
Yeah.
So it felt really isolating. So by having the group and having these guys to chat to, it felt like, hey, I've got mates, we've got a gang. And I said, should we meet again next month? And they agreed. And only one dad came. And I thought, oh, that was a good idea.
Oh,
I thought, oh, well, never mind. It was good while it lasted.
yeah.
But my wife, bless her, my wife Vina, saw that I'd got something out of it, and she said, "Well, keep going, keep going."
Yeah.
And we've built up. We're 12 years strong now. We've
Wow.
built up to a stage where we have a different activity every week. We get about 20 to 25 dads at each session.
Yeah.
Um, we've got about 250 dads in a WhatsApp group. That's like, the when people say dads don't talk, I laugh because they've
Of
got so much to say.
course.
Sometimes it's about, what kind of batteries does this device take?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I think it's a PP3. But and sometimes it's about, what one dad, some of the things they say, and this is just in a WhatsApp group. And one dad said, he he went to make a cup of tea, and he put the kettle on, and then he froze, and he said that he'd forgotten how to make a cup of tea,
Oh gosh.
and he couldn't work it out, and he called his wife. She was in the house at the same time, and he broke down, and um, he was having a breakdown. and he's told us about this, and he's talked about his support and his treatment since, and the outpouring of support was immense. So many people were grateful for him sharing it,
Mm,
and this is back to support being two ways.
absolutely.
Um, Grateful for him sharing it, grateful that they're able to acknowledge that and offer help or offer just emotional support to him,
Mm,
and um, and then talk about their own experiences. And people talk about how one that I remember was that a dad was talking about his partner. He'd been with her for several years, and she said that she was pregnant,
mm.
and he said, I don't want a child. I don't want you to have a baby, and I'm not going to be here.
Wow.
And and he was so upset with the fact that he was going to be a parent, he couldn't hold it together, and his parents then disowned him because they said, you've got into this situation. You're going to have
Mm,
to stick by the woman that you've been with for the last 3 4 years,
yeah.
and um, and they now have 3 children,
Wow.
and he can't imagine life
Wow.
without them. And
Wow.
to share that as a
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot. And I think, so going back to the idea of, men don't talk, they talk all the time. That's
Yeah.
just one area of Leeds Dads.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we have email newsletters, and we share tips on child rearing and bonding. And our core focus is supporting dads to engage with their preschool children. And as with Princess Kate, our focus is the early years, the first 1,000 days,
Yeah.
because um, it's not perfect science, but if you can get that right,
Yeah.
if children feel supported, engaged, involved, nurtured through those first sort of 2 3 years, then the outcomes change dramatically. They are more likely to have better educational outcomes, better stability in terms of well-being, and come out as rounded, mature adults. And all of that can be, it's not, as I say, it's not a perfect science, but it's UNESCO's concept, and
Mm.
it's saying that get the first 1,000 days right, and you've got a good chance of having a well-rounded individual, and that's our aim.
That's an incredible statistic. It's nice and tangible, isn't it? At 1,000 days, you can kind of, although it sounds a lot, and obviously then when you put it into 3 years, it is a
Yeah,
lot, but it's
yeah,
still, it sounds like a finite amount that you're going to be able to do. The WhatsApp group is that um those people that needed to ask about particular types of batteries may also be the kind of people that um, will be able to support somebody else when they're having a meltdown. And I think,
absolutely.
yeah, I think the thing with support is sometimes we feel that it's got to be really big. It's got to be a big emotional thing. But actually, one of the key things is asking people what they need, because I think we often assume that what people need is going to be something absolutely massive that we can't deliver on, and so we don't ask. But often it is that someone makes just one meal or
Yeah,
tells them where the nearest Tesco's is so that they can
yeah,
get what they need for the baby, or you know, and I think we forget to ask each other, what is it that you need? And that
there's,
WhatsApp group enables that, doesn't it?
yes, there's a well of experience amongst the dads in terms of being able to say, "Oh, my child is is crying at night. She's teething. She's very upset, and no one's getting any sleep. What should we do? We're both up with the baby, and nothing's really working.
Yeah.
And some of the things that the dads say are marvelous. They'll say things like, "Well, first of all, only one of you needs to be up because the other one's going to be able to take over in the morning. If you're
Yeah.
both exhausted, mind my English. If you're both exhausted in the night, neither of you is going to be able to gain any support in the morning. It might sound hard at 2 a.m., but it's basically the best thing you could do so that you've got something that you've got at 6 a.m. you can look forward to. And some dads will say, "Well, what are you talking about? I'm there to support my wife." And it's like, "Well, you do it then and let her sleep in and then swap over in the morning." And just things like that. That's not what you're going to get out of a book. What you get out of a book is, oh, use this powder or put this gel on the teeth. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's more going on here. And here's a tip that you're not going to get to read in any of the books that you really shouldn't be reading anyway, because they teach you to do things that can be so difficult for families.
Yeah.
So yeah, the WhatsApp group really works, and it allows people to share their experience, allows them to give, and to know that someone's benefited from that. To know that someone will say, "Oh, I went to the ice cream parlor up by on the road out of Leeds. I can't think what it's called now. Going to you go through Round A, you're heading north, and you're going towards what's the village that you come to? The
Oh,
first one
I can't
begins with
remember.
a K. I'm waffling now, but
I can't
there's an ice
remember.
cream parlor out there,
Yeah.
and someone will say, "Oh, I went here last week and took the kids, and they've got a playground. It's a lot of fun." And another dad might, send a text photo, a few days later and say, "Hey, I went here. It was brilliant. The
Yeah.
kids had a lovely time. We could afford it." And we had a great family experience. We made memories,
Yeah.
and the person that gave that advice in the first place can then sit back and say, "Oh, I actually made someone's day. I actually
Yes.
made someone happy.
Yeah.
What did it cost me?
Yeah.
It cost me a minute of sharing some information."
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that people are able to give within the group, and others can gain. We've got a dad who is an administrator, and he's great at it. And I said, "Look, could Mike?" I said, "Can you help us run Leeds Dads?" And he's like, "I'll do anything you want as long as it doesn't involve a computer." I'm like, "No, that's what I want from you." And and he said, "I'll do anything you like as long as it doesn't involve a computer." And he now helps lead our dads and kids walks, which are the first Sunday of every month at different parks going around Leeds. So that'd be Golden Acre, Roundhay, the glorious Middleton Park,
Oh, I love
or
Middleton Park.
yeah, or actually my favourite's Temple Newsam because it's just big. It's
I
just
love Temple
big,
Newsam. Yeah. Yeah.
and he takes the kids there, and I didn't think that he had more skills that he could offer. His kids are in their 20s, 30s. They've grown up, left home, and when he sees dads come with babies that are crying, the dads are tired, he's like, "Yeah, I've been there, and this is what it was like for me, and I know what it's like for you."
Mm.
And just having that depth of experience to share, um, a lot of dads find it very reassuring.
Yeah.
They,
Well,
they,
once a
they,
dad,
they
always a dad, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
your kids may have left home, but still a dad, and to be able to pass that support and experience on to other dads, that must give him a feeling of really being able to still you know, do things and enjoy life in a different way as well.
Well, I keep checking. Are you okay to do this? You're right. He's like, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Where's the task? You know, it's not a task. I find it
love that.
something that I enjoy,
Yeah,
and I'm able to support, and they make me feel good by seeing what they get out of it. And seeing dads and kids is still a very it's not something that is common for British society. It's a
mm,
real frustration because you see a dad with pushing a pram. You say, "Oh, there's a dad doing his bit. Well done, dad." And you see a mum pushing a pram with a baby. And you think, oh, "What's the time? Think it's going to rain?" You know, you don't think
mm,
about it at all,
yeah,
and both need to be commended
yeah,
for being involved and engaged with their children. And we forget, and then we see the dad and we say, "Oh, well done, dad." But we should be encouraging dads right across the board to be engaged and to give their time to their children. And we're not seeing enough of it in British society. It is a shame. It does exist elsewhere. The Swedes, the Norwegians, they make it so that uh, spending time with the children in the early years is compulsory. They get time off work to be able to do that. It changes the whole bonding scenario. It changes the work scenario because having mums off work for
yeah,
6 months a year and then coming back, a lot of mums find themselves having to step back in their role.
yeah,
Whereas if dads are doing the same, then all of a sudden that difference gets evened out because dads don't want to be losing out after taking paternity leave. So all of a sudden the mums don't lose out, and
yeah.
it's marvelous.
Yeah, I think the paternity leave thing is an ongoing and big discussion, isn't it? I have a friend, Elliot Ray, who is from forgive me, Elliot, football, music, fatherhood, and he's
Yeah,
doing
yeah, yeah.
massive things in with dads, and we had him on a few years ago now. But he's really at the nuts and bolts of looking at paternity leave and how important it is to be able to share it out if that's what you want to do, or for the father to take the main role in it. And we know that those whole relationships are changing, and the two dads bringing up a child, or two mums, and all that kind of what we used to see as the kind of 2.4 children, mum and dad, has
Yeah.
really changed.
It's
Um,
so different now.
yeah.
And yeah, I know Elliot well, and I'm in his book, but it's it's
How did I
it.
not know that, Errol? I went to school with Elliot.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
he's changing outcomes. He's
Yeah.
changing outcomes,
Yeah.
and the idea of even considering this as being something to address, it hasn't really been seen in that way for a long time. There's a campaign group called Pregnant Then Screwed, who look at mums who take who may lose out in the workplace because they become mothers,
Yeah.
and it champions them, and it does marvelous things. And their number one sort of cheerleaders should be dads, because
Mm.
without them, so many families couldn't function. Without them taking time out, so many families could not function
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Let's just hone down into Leeds Dads, because we're talking about the word support. And one of the reasons two reasons I got you on at this time. One, because it is, as we speak, Father's Day coming up in a couple of weeks.
Sure.
And so I thought that fitted really nicely. But two, really wanting to carry on supporting Leeds Dads. So what can we do to support the brilliant work that you're doing with Leeds
Well,
Dads?
I'm afraid to say that, well, we're 12 years old. This Father's Day will be 13 years old.
Wow.
And it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And up to now, whenever we've looked for funding for the things that we do, everything we do is free.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're like the NHS, free at the point of use. And we ask for pay as you feel. So if someone can afford to give £2, they give £2. If someone can afford to give a tenner, then we'll say thanks and cherish it just the same.
Mm.
And funding has just dried up,
Yeah.
and it's been a real challenge. You can call it the cost of living crisis. It's so many difficulties have arisen from the last few years, and the challenge is that this is a period when we have more dads coming to us than ever before,
I'm sure.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we've had to scale back our work. We used to have an activity up to a month or so ago. We had an activity every week. Now we're down to one a month. We're
Mm.
down to basic walks because
Yeah.
it's the cheapest thing we can
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We've got lots of irons in the fire. We're looking at funding and
Yeah.
looking at much longer term funding. But there's two things we would like people to do. One is to use us, to keep using us,
Mm.
and come and join in. The Facebook page and the Twitter feed are very active,
Yeah.
with lots of tips on supporting your children. We have quite a few experts whose information that we share in terms of child rearing. And two is give us a hand. If you're an individual and you've got some money, then send it in. info@leedsdads.org. You'll find us there.
Yeah. We'll
Or
pop it
if
on the
you
show notes as well, Errol, so people can see it really clearly. And
fabulous.
yeah. Yeah.
Or go to our website, leedsdads.org. And you can, if you're a company, we're looking for more corporate social responsibility from the fabulous companies in Leeds. Leeds is the biggest financial centre outside of London in our country, in Britain. There's millions, there's tens of millions being made within the city in terms of finance. And we've been reaching out to lots of organisations, and we need some of them to start turning around and saying, yes,
Mm.
you're supporting our staff and
Yeah.
their children.
Yeah.
You're supporting our communities, and we want to be able to support you. That's what we'd like to happen. That's how we'd like to see things work out. It's slow, but it does work. And by doing it from the grassroots up, it creates a much more stable base. So we're saying get in touch, info@leedsdads.org. Go to the website, leedsdads.org. You can find us quite easily, and you can find where to donate, how to donate. If you have no money but you have time, it's just as valuable in
Mm.
my eyes. Resources can be much more valuable than cash. But unless people reach out, we won't be able to continue. And that's pretty much the bottom line.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that, Errol. We're coming to the end of our kind of conversation today. We always throw a challenge out to people listening, so it would obviously be what you've just said. And can I say that if you're a company that's not in Leeds and you still want to give to Leeds Dads, and please feel free, anybody listening that wants to give money to Leeds Dads can give to Leeds Dads. That would be wonderful. But also, just encourage a dad today. It might be your dad, it might be someone else who you know is a dad, it might be someone that's going to be a new dad. But let's encourage and get alongside dads and support them and ask them what they need. And if you can't offer what they need, then you might know somebody else that can. Do do get on the website or the Facebook, the Leeds Dad Facebook, and support Errol, because he's doing an amazing job and has been for all this time and needs support. Errol, is there anything else that you want to say?
I need to say thank you very much, Carol, for inviting me on the show. And I need to say that we spoke about it at the start, how you worked with us at Dadtastic Day, which is where we take over Leeds Millennium Square, Leeds City Museum. We get about 3,000 granddads, grandmas, kids, mums, aunties, carers, and have a massive party. And we have people such as yourself running music sessions, and we wear you down to the bone. I'm so embarrassed now. I'm sorry, but I
Oh no,
know
I
that
loved it. I absolutely loved it. Oh my goodness, the
and
photos are amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's all about making memories in children's lives. Children make families. Families make communities, communities make cities, and alongside the children, there's always a dad. So let's give them a hand and help them to be the people who they can be. And if we can do that, that's the least of our work done.
That's brilliant. Erin, I don't know if you know, but at the end of every episode, I write an on-the-spot poem. And so if you just give me a couple of seconds to get my thoughts together, I'll just finish with a poem, and then yeah, we'll say goodbye. But let me just have a think for a minute.
I'm very excited about it.
If you think of a table and the legs underneath, the support that it gives is important to each, and you can't put your food there unless it is standing. And that's what support is. It's about understanding. It's about Errol's mum and that big pot of food and the people around the table, even if Errol's mood was a little bit low when those people were there. But it's all about community. It teaches how to share. And one little lad who didn't feel great as everyone gathered round and borrowed his plate went on to have an amazing group of dads who supported, who talked about things like batteries and life and how to be with each other, so that they could see that understanding is all that you need, and an ear and a person and maybe a group to feed. There you go. That was a little bit messy, but there you go.
Carol, that was marvelous. That was better than anything that I've said, and that summarized everything that I've said. That was wonderful. Thank you. And that was so off the cuff. That was energy, and that was understanding. Thank you, Carol.
You're so welcome. I always say that the best poems are the ones where the guests have really inspired me and you know, given me something to really share. And I think that what you're doing is wonderful, and I really want people to support Leeds Dads and you and all that you're doing and all that dads out there are doing, and Elliot, and yeah, let's get alongside our dads.
Thank you so much.
Right, before I get completely emotional, I'm going to say thank you so much, Errol, and let's make sure that people look at the show notes, get in touch with Errol and Leeds Dads, and thank you for all your time today, Errol.
Thank you. LeedsDads.org.
Thanks, Errol. Bye-bye.
Bye.